the media and the headlines will have you believe that NIL is a catastrophe and that it's ruining collegiate athletics. But what we've seen is that we're now nearly 4 years into this. Collegiate athletics is growing at a clip like never seen before. The product on the field is better than ever before as well. And sponsorship dollars are flowing into NIL at a rate higher than ever.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to KindredCast, where we shine a light on the people and ideas shaping our future. KindredCast is a production of Kindred Media, powered by LionTree.
Welcome to KindredCast. It's great to have you on the show. Ayden and his partner Brandon Wimbush are the co-founders of a very exciting sports technology business called MOGL.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
I think you have a very interesting vantage point given all that MOGL is doing in the college name, image, and likeness space, NIL as the kids call it. And so hopefully you could tell us a little bit more about certainly what MOGL is doing, because you're a software provider to the space, and all the growth vectors that are happening there, but just overall the industry, because it really is a moment that is quite chaotic as it pertains to college sports and unions and professionalization. Let's start with, give people just a brief primer on what MOGL is.
Yeah, absolutely. So MOGL is an AI-enabled influencer marketing platform. So what we're doing is the platform matches brands to athlete influencers and streamlines the entire campaign management process for them. So it involves performance tracking for their influencer marketing campaigns, fulfillment verification, payment facilitation. Now, the platform itself was specifically optimized for collegiate athletics, otherwise known as the NIL opportunity. So it automatically discloses the activity to athletic departments and protects athlete eligibility within the platform. That software is also trusted by athletic departments and teams to connect their networks of local businesses, corporate sponsors, and fans to the athletes in one safe, secure, and compliant marketplace.
Essentially, you are a software platform for the athlete. The athlete is your customer.
Yes.
And they are using it to manage essentially the opportunities that have come in through name, image, and likeness.
Yes. Ultimately, we have two primary customers within the space. It's athlete influencers who are looking to monetize their name, image, and likeness, and it's brands that are looking to build awareness for their products and services through mass-scale influencer marketing campaigns.
So I'm Coca-Cola or Procter & Gamble, whoever I am, I can go on this and say, hey, I want to be around women's basketball. Caitlin Clark would be the avatar of it, but there's lots of others. And I can ask them essentially if they will sign on to be a brand ambassador or do different functions for the brand.
Yeah,
and pay them for it.
Effectively, the way that it works is brands come onto the platform, they create campaigns, and then they can filter the entire network of athletes. There's about 20,000 in the network today, and source influencers directly for their campaigns. Now, our technology also matches them to the athlete influencers that match their criteria. Say they have a geographic location that they're looking to build, or they have a specific follower count that they're looking to address. Our technology takes that into account. And then they can manage the communications, the delivery of assets, the deliverable fulfillment, all of that directly within the platform.
And MOGL is taking a percentage of that, or are these people subscribing on both sides? How's the business model work?
Yep, so it's a subscription-based model. So brands subscribe for access to the platform and access to the influencer network. There's a couple different ways that they can engage with that subscription. At the lowest tier is what's called our professional subscription. So this is primarily designated for small to medium-sized businesses and e-commerce brands. It's self-service with some additional preliminary support from our team, and you manage your entire campaign holistically from start to finish. There is what is also called our Elite package, which is available for large national brands. We really work as your outsourced NIL agency, if you will, but the technology enables us to really deliver your desired outcomes at scale.
So I'm a local dealership in Alabama, car dealership, and I'd love to leverage the Alabama football team.
Yep.
I could go into your platform and essentially select the type of athletes I'd like to engage with.
Yep.
Assuming they're on the platform.
Yep. So you go in, you create a deal. So say it's, hey, come to my dealership, do an appearance. We're hosting a local event, and then we'd like you to do some social promotion around that as well. You would create that deal and then invite any Alabama athletes, specifically maybe football players, that you're looking to work with directly through the platform. Now, if those athletes are not on the platform that you're seeking, we have an athlete relations team, which is managed by my co-founder, Brandon, who played quarterback at Notre Dame, and we can source those athletes for you because there's no barriers to entry for the athletes to join the platform.
And so those athletes are not paying you either. The ones that join, the ones who sign up, there's no money coming from the athlete.
No money comes from the athlete, so we don't take a single percentage of their deal. The platform's completely free for them to join, and all of their activities automatically disclosed. And most importantly, their tax documentation is provided automatically at the end of the year.
Right. Okay, so it's all synced there. And like you were saying in the opening, the universities have access, the ADs have access to this platform to see how much these athletes are making.
Yep. So there's a major emphasis on both compliance reporting, but then also analytics and insights for these universities. So they get real-time visibility into everything that their athletes are doing on the platform, but then they can also run analytics and insights reports on how that breaks down across sports, who their most top-earning athletes are. They can get visibility into the contract, and they can also go as granular as roster management to see how many have fulfilled the necessary requirements to complete their profile.
Got it. Give me a sense of that size. So what are some of the highest earners on your platform making? How big is this getting? Because this is all as of what? How long ago did this all
So
become
July
possible?
1st of 2021 was when it became formally allowable for college athletes to monetize their NIL. That was also the day that we launched with a fully built product. And it's obviously evolved quite exponentially since then.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're about...
So 3 years ago, basically, give
Yep.
or take.
Yep.
That's not a long time at all.
No.
It's a very short amount of time.
Right.
So what is 3 years into this?
Yeah.
What are some athletes pulling out of this type of arrangement?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways that athletes really engage with Mogul, right? So on the primary side of things, they're connecting with brands for traditional NIL deals, sponsorships, influencer marketing campaigns. Top earners for athletes there are earning in the few hundreds of thousands on the platform.
Per year?
Per year so far.
It's a lot of money. A few $100,000.
Yep.
Okay.
And then the other way, and we can kind of get into the nitty gritty of this if you like, but collectives, they're effectively booster clubs that are designed to support college athletes through donor payments and things like that. Collectives often use our software to distribute payments to athletes as well. So athletes within those buckets are earning in the millions just directly through the Mogul platform, though that's not something we directly are responsible for.
Wait, sorry, let me understand that. So you're saying a few $100,000 through the brand sponsors,
Yep.
but then the collectives, which are these alumni organizations, essentially, or people vested in these universities, who are essentially on their own, raising money amongst themselves and alums to pay the athletes to come to the programs to play, correct?
So the latter part of that is technically recruiting inducement, though it happens rampantly throughout the country. It's both to come to the school to play, but also to effectively a salary to continue competing for the university.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And that can be millions of dollars for a top quarterback, a top
Yes.
basketball, some of the biggest programs.
Yep.
And just brands, again, dealerships, et cetera. You could see several. So athletes can be making millions of dollars now in NIL.
Oh, yeah. We see it every day.
How many would you, if you had to spitball, how many are in the millions?
It's a good question. I would say that the number's probably smaller than you would think and what the media would lead you to believe.
Okay.
I would say the athletes that are making in the millions is less than 30 or 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
Small.
Small.
In the entire country.
Right. Now, there's a variety of parameters at play there. If an athlete elects to transfer numerous different times and the collective wasn't smart about how they drew up the contract, there are different ways to game the system.
Got it.
We don't need to get into that.
We don't need to get into the dirty of
Yeah.
the whole thing. But it is Wild West, and the rules are different by state, correct, in terms of how...
So generally speaking, yes. Some states have state laws that permit that don't necessarily require a lot of disclosures. Some states have state laws that prohibit the NCAA from punishing the athletes. Other states don't even have state laws, and in that case, university athletic departments are supposed to follow the NCAA jurisdiction and what they've detailed. But generally speaking, it's a national NIL ecosystem. State laws don't have too much of an impact in the space currently because the NCAA has actually lost some notable cases recently that would prohibit them from actually enforcing any punishment against athletic departments and athletes.
How were you ready in 2021, July 2021, to launch this platform? Were you doing something else that was similar, or you just thought this was going to happen? Tell me a little bit about the origin story.
Yeah, so my background's in financial services and private equity, so I was not doing anything along the collegiate athletics or influencer marketing landscape. Really kind of the impetus for the idea was at the end of August in 2019, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed legislation that would enable California athletes the ability to monetize their NIL starting in 2023. So we knew that brands were going to need accessible access to these athletes in a turnkey and seamless manner. But more importantly, given the fact that I was very close with Brandon and a number of other student athletes while at Notre Dame, we knew that given the restrictions in their schedule and the broader compliance regulations and requirements, they were going to need a solution to connect them to sponsors and fans. So in October of 2019, we founded the company MOGL. The first year was primarily spent working with brand marketers and executives at marketing agencies to figure out what features and functionality would be needed in a platform like this. And then we started actually developing the product in March of 2020, right around as the pandemic came to
You had
be.
some time on your hands, so you started developing. Okay.
Yep.
And then you were there when it started. Give me a sense of the size of how much money is flowing through your type of platform or all these platforms. I know Open Doors is another player
Yep.
in the space.
Yep.
Or perhaps there are others.
Yep.
It's still early days, though, and you said there's only a handful of people making millions, so that already is giving me a sense that how many college athletes are there? D1.
So there's 450,000, though international student athletes can't monetize in the way that domestic athletes can.
Okay.
So the total addressable market is closer to like 375,000.
So 375,000 Division I college athletes.
All divisions.
All divisions.
Yeah.
We look at just Division I being the biggest programs, of which there's in the hundreds, like one something.
Yep.
What is the average athlete getting right now in NIL? We talked about the highest earners, but what's are we talking $100, $1,000?
Yeah. So I can only speak from a MOGL
Yeah.
perspective. The average athlete is earning $2,200 a year on MOGL
Got it. Across all sports.
across all sports.
Now,
So
if you took the two biggest, which is basketball and football, correct? What is that number?
it's generally somewhat closer to, 10,000 or so.
Okay.
What I would emphasize is the thing that really differentiates MOGL in the landscape is that we're providing opportunities for all athletes. And what we've seen in the data is that in 2021 and 2022, the marketplace was heavily skewed towards football and men's basketball, as you can imagine. But now we've actually seen the numbers become quite democratic across the marketplace. And there's a variety of things that factor here. Number one is just larger scale of campaigns. So brands are working with more athletes at a time. Some brands are working with 10,000 athletes at a time on the platform. But then also there's been a massive increase in interest in non-revenue generating sports and women's sports throughout the broader sports landscape.
Ayden, is that fueled by the brands or by the collective spending to get the best athletes in those respective sports to their programs?
You mean
The amount of money going to democratizing of college athletics in terms of, now it's field hockey, sailing, volleyball, some of the sports that aren't the biggest sports.
Yep.
Are the dollars that are flowing to those athletes from people recruiting them to the programs, or is it from Pepsi, Coke, whatever, trying to have
It's
them
brand sponsorships.
Okay.
So MOGL is really focused on what we refer to as like traditional NIL. So it's sponsorships and mass scale campaigns, right? And as our network continues to grow and as we work with more large brands that are looking for national distribution at a local scale, that's what we're delivering to them, is just tens of thousands of athletes at one time.
Got it.
And that's what really differentiates us in the landscape.
So 370,000 addressable athletes.
Yep.
How much is flowing through the platform ballpark in terms of dollars?
So this year alone, we've done about 10 million through the platform in athlete payments. We're obviously very early in the year, but we've already surpassed our numbers from 2023. So the overall landscape continues to expand tremendously, and that figure does not include free product payments as well. So a lot of the deals on the
You get
platform.
a pair of shoes or a video game
Exactly.
or something like that.
Exactly.
Where are we going with this whole crazy thing? 10 million is a lot, but it's not actually that much in the scheme of what professional sports make, or
Yep.
even what rights are for college football games or any of the bigger sports.
Yep.
Where's this going? People, I think, from the outside are seeing it as the Wild West, different rules, different states. You touched on a little of that.
Yep.
Where does this end up in your mind?
Yep. So I think the Wild West moniker is definitely something that we're trying to avoid or subdue as much as possible.
Yeah.
Tame, great word. And the reason why is because the media and the headlines will have you believe that NIL is a catastrophe and that it's ruining collegiate athletics. But what we've seen is that we're now nearly 4 years into this. Collegiate athletics is growing at a clip like never seen before. The product on the field is better than ever before as well. And sponsorship dollars are flowing into NIL at a rate higher than ever. 35% of brands today actually feel that they're going to exclusively work with college athletes as opposed to professional athletes right now because of the higher engagement rates and the overall better value that they deliver. So where this is going, ultimately we felt early on that NIL was really the first domino to fall within collegiate athletics. And what I mean by that is there was a long road to get here. But now that NIL has been legalized, if you will, we feel that within the next 2 years or so, FBS football will become its own
FBS?
Power 5 football, Division I, largest conferences, your Big Tens, your SECs.
Yep.
They're going to formally create their own subdivision with a collective bargaining and most likely salaries associated with that. Additionally, we're probably sooner than that, we're going to be in a revenue sharing model. So if you look at professional sports, 50% of merchandise sales, ticket sales, television, multimedia rights are distributed to the athletes. We're going to see that within college football in particular. The rest of the sports, our thesis is that the NCAA will continue to govern them. And the reason for that is the NCAA makes its money from its championships. So the majority of that is coming from March Madness. And the NCAA, in order to continue to remain an entity and continue to support the non-revenue generating sports, is going to need to maintain those championships.
So you believe that we will see football, the biggest programs of football, which is like 80 schools about.
That's a good number.
Will get cleaved off of the NCAA university program as we know it today, essentially really professionalized.
Yep.
And they will operate as, and this is something I've talked about now for, Laura, keep me honest, about 6 months of how I think the writing's a bit on the wall that this will be the competitor to the NFL, ultimately.
Yep.
Maybe not today, not tomorrow, or in the near term, but at some point they're already starting to run into each other, and the dollars are going to get that big. And as I think people have followed some of our work in the past, college football is actually the second biggest media rights generator to the NFL and all the other sports. So it is a lot of money, and as you were saying, there could be a rev share. So they get carved out, and they're governed by their own set of rules. It becomes a rev share. Do those players then also end up unionized, in your opinion?
That remains to be seen. We'll see. There's definitely going to be a collective bargaining agreement in place. So the challenge that you will run into, though, is with an 85-man team and the differences in, say, a very competitive team like Tulane and then a national championship like Michigan, right? The difference between...
You just called Tulane very competitive.
Yeah, they're a very competitive D1 team. They beat USC in a bowl game last year or 2 years ago, right?
Just making sure I heard that.
But the 2-star recruit on Tulane compared to the 5-star quarterback on Michigan, they are owed, as naturally would be in a free market society, very different amounts of money from a salary perspective. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this collective bargaining agreement ultimately pans out.
Right. How do you essentially reconcile? Whereas in the NFL, you pay the quarterback more, or you pay, the DN. In college, where you have a blanket now of rev share, how are you going to distinguish amongst the different players and their values?
And who's ultimately going to be the one distributing those payments, right? Is it the athletic department who's responsible for allocating their, say it's $15 million in multimedia TV rights? Can they just distribute it how they please? Is there a portion of that that can only be allocated? What does the allocation look like? How does Title IX fit into all of this? There are a variety of different factors at play here, and it'll be fascinating to see how it plays out. We do, however, feel like we're moving towards that direction.
Fascinating. Doesn't that, but for Mogul and for platforms like yours,
Yep.
does that carve out, it seems like you wouldn't necessarily play a role, or am I wrong there?
So there's a couple different ways that we can play a role. We already are a payment processor for the collectives, and the majority of these collectives are going to formally join the athletic departments.
Well, that's the question, right? The collectives right now are this sort of, again, extraordinary body that is sort of creating
Made
the
up,
money.
generally speaking, by former employees of the athletic department.
Got it.
So our thesis, and I think that this is general thesis within the industry, is collectives will be formally joining the athletic departments, and they'll be the entity responsible for distributing these payments, whether those payments are revenue share payments, donor payments, sponsorship dollars, all of that. And our service and our software is the only fully integrated software that integrates with athletic departments and collectives today and can distribute those payments in a streamlined way. Now, there are other wrinkles associated with this. We're not building Mogul to be an HR platform. So if athletes become employees of a school, they're probably going to use ADP or whomever their traditional payroll provider is. But we as a company are largely insulated from a lot of what we've talked about over the last 15 minutes. And the reason why is because we are distributing mass scale influencer campaigns to all athletes. And right now, in 2024 figures, only 7% of the payments or 7% of the total deals completed have gone to football players. And that really kind of echoes our overall thesis entering into the landscape, and that's why we're generally insulated from that.
Because if football gets carved out, that's okay. We've got the rest of the pie.
It's okay, yeah. And you could make the argument that if football players are receiving a salary and they're getting to participate in the revenue share and all of that, they may be less inclined to participate in influencer marketing campaigns for smaller dollar amounts. So we've built our business to withstand and sustain against that potential threat.
One last thing on the football dynamic. Are you going to see, if we're essentially saying this is no longer university-led initiative, that these are essentially paid athletes to play football with just the name being licensed essentially to play or be on campus, but they're renting out the venue or whatever you want to call it. Does that, I said I believe it's competition in the NFL. Do you believe that? And when I think of perhaps the value of an Alabama running back could be far greater to play 8 years, if they can, at Alabama in this system than it would be to go to the NFL where that position might be undervalued. What's your take on that whole dynamic?
Yeah, well, we've already seen that play out in a variety of different instances, from collective payments, right? I mean, a lot of athletes, take Michigan this past year, a lot of athletes elected to stay because what they could earn for staying in college outpaced their rookie contract or expected rookie contract. Now, with college football becoming a competitor of the NFL, I don't necessarily see the argument as much. Now, from a revenue standpoint, they may very well generate a very similar number soon. But players, from a physical standpoint, just aren't ready to play in the NFL, generally speaking, unless if you're a quarterback. After, that's why you have to play until you're a junior in school.
Right.
So that remains to be seen. That being said, though, the NCAA as a whole is currently the third largest revenue-generating entity within domestic U.S. sports, right?
Yeah,
it's NFL,
huge.
MLB, and then it's the NCAA.
But it seems kind of ironic that you'll have now enticements for people to stay in school in football, but then they won't be in school.
So that's where it becomes really interesting, right? So if athletes are a unionized entity and they're potentially employees of the school, do they need to attend class anymore? Who knows, right? Because one of the potential benefits of athletes staying in school longer is they'll get their degree. They have a little bit of a stopgap in case of injuries or if things just don't pan out at the next level. But if athletes are going to be able to compete for these institutions without actually attending class, that potentially is detrimental to them.
Yeah.
So
now, Ayden, this entire sort of suite of content we're building around this KindredCast report is about youth sports.
Yep.
College is sort of youth sports, and it's becoming less and less as it professionalizes. But how do you see what you're doing in the overall NIL influx impact potentially high school and youth sports? Does this start trickling down? Is it already trickling down? Are high school students on your platform actually?
Yeah, so we've started to see it trickle down already. Something like 22 or so states have approved NIL at the high school level. We currently do not permit high school athletes on the Mogul platform just because from a verification standpoint, it becomes kind of a nightmare for us to ensure that these high school athletes are who they say they are and that, you know, the overall dollar amounts would warrant doing that type of a verification. But we do see major trickle-down effect associated with this. Now, I think that the bigger opportunity would be for the agency space within high school. So if you were to take the top 50 or high school basketball players and the top 300 high school football players in an arena where NIL is nationally available in the high school level, there's an opportunity for agents to work with them. But for us, given what we're trying to do, which is like mass scale campaigns, less of an opportunity.
Got it. So should we think about this, if you were a child actor, you would have an agent and you would book TV shows or Broadway plays or whatever and get paid, and you were a professional, albeit going through middle school or high school. Is that essentially where we're going with athletes?
Yeah, we're already there.
We're there.
So I think within the last 2 years in particular, agencies have started to become very involved within the collegiate athletics landscape. There's some positive components to that, right? Obviously, it helps if you're working with a reputable agency and a reputable agent, it helps to support these student athletes as they're exploring potential brand sponsorships, but more importantly, these contracts with collectives. But we've seen some very predatory behavior in the space as well, in which agents are taking 20% of collective payments for work that they really didn't have to do anything for.
Right.
And then they're enticing those athletes to transfer the next year so they can get another 20% of that collective payment. So that's kind of a stance, like the agency involvement area in the space we're somewhat neutral on at this point, because a lot of the time agents are just trying to keep the relationship warm for the contract at the next level. And it ultimately leads athletes to not necessarily source their own deals and really maximize their publicity rights while they can.
It's pretty wild. And I guess whenever you have money at stake, you and people who may not be fully informed because this is not what they do for a living, and they've just happened to find a skill set, you might have predatory behavior, and I guess we're seeing some of that. So if you're a parent with a youth sports prodigy, there used to be the shiny carrot of you'll get a scholarship, but now the dollars could come sooner, and they certainly could be there, period, for college. So I fear, and I wonder your opinion, is this going to make our already heightened frenzy of youth athletics that much bigger because now, oh my gosh, there's just that much more at stake? I have some concerns here.
Yes, absolutely, right? I think one of the things that we've observed over the last 20 years, right? I mean, I can look back to when I was growing up playing soccer and basketball, right? Youth sports has become a major pay-to-play ecosystem, right? Travel fees, registration fees, equipment fees are through the roof, right?
We're seeing on average nearly $900 per our report.
Ridiculous.
Plug for KindredCast. It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And part of the reason, obviously,
family, yeah.
is that historically, there was a big opportunity to get your kid into school, pay for his education or her education, and that was a really big driving factor. But now with the advent of collectives and the trickle-down effect of revenue in a post-revenue sharing world where we believe we're headed, there's an even greater incentive to make sure that your kid is performing at the highest level from a youth sports perspective. So,
which means specialization earlier. It means paying more for travel programs. It really begets a lot of spend and time, frankly.
Yep. And it's really interesting you bring this up, actually, because one of the things that we focused on at MOGL from day one was really in trying to make an impact in this broader landscape, right? So our slogan from day one has been get paid, build your brand, make a difference. We want to help athletes to get paid, help businesses to build their brand, and then make a profound impact in the community. So we've partnered with an organization called Every Kid Sports. You'd probably love to talk to them, actually. And their mission is to ensure that youth athletic programming is available for all athletes regardless of family income.
Very cool.
And the reason why is because of everything we've talked about. Their fees are through the roof, and it's not necessarily, are you going to be the next D1 college athlete, but it's about the teamwork, the accountability, and the other characteristics that you get as a youth athlete. That's really important to us, right? I didn't play sports in college. My co-founder obviously did, but both of us derived an exceptional amount of value from that. So we wanted to give back through that channel.
Love that. I love that 100%. So you've raised some capital, yes?
Yep.
How much have you raised?
So we've raised just over $6 million to date. We're venture backed
Yep.
across a variety of rounds. So we had a pre-seed round and then a seed round, and we're raising a bridge round right now.
Okay.
We're currently going to be profitable by the end of the year.
Great.
So really excited about the progress of the business and really the impact that we're having.
So how does this, in your mind, and we'll wrap up, we'll let you get back to your day job, but how does this become a billion-dollar business for you or for other people in your space? Because I see the momentum. And by the way, I see this in youth sports all the time, which is there's so much enthusiasm. People can see the spend. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, it's happening, right? And there's really an inelastic demand for parents as it pertains to their children. But how is it a really big building? If 10 million's flowing through it now, you talked about the number of athletes. Where is that quantum jump to make this? If you're a venture investor, I want to see a 10x out of you, right?
Absolutely.
How do I get there with you?
Yeah, so the biggest thing more than anything else, if you look at digital marketing and digital advertising as a whole, right? Obviously, the digital marketing space is exploding because it gives brands the ability to really transcend geographies and efficiently promote their brands with efficient tracking, analytics, insights, all of that. But the methods of digital advertising are changing significantly. Over the past 10 years, brands have been able to advertise across Meta and Google advertising through traditional paid ads. But Apple privacy policy changes and Google privacy policy changes have made it incredibly challenging for these brands to achieve their historical marketing results. And as a result, their customer acquisition costs are rising. So where we come in is all of those brands, or a large majority of them, are now switching to influencer marketing. It enables scalable targeting of Gen Z consumers at a much more efficient and affordable rate. So where this becomes a billion-dollar business is by mass-scale influencer campaigns, not just with college athlete influencers, but with athlete influencers in general and the broader creator economy. Like I mentioned earlier, 35% of brands are exclusively advertising with college athletes right now as opposed to pro. But there's even more compelling stats associated with the influencer marketing industry as a whole.
So basically, you've created a mousetrap that focuses on this niche of NIL, which is growing, but it has a fair amount of containment. But if we blow this up to the overall influencer market, and because of this mousetrap, you are now becoming the conduit for this brand spend, that's where you start getting leverage and you can start really getting something big going.
Yep, and not even just to the broader influencer market, right? So say we just remain within collegiate athletics. So we've got roughly 400,000 influencers to work with. This is becoming a direct replacement for paid advertising on Meta. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'm assuming that Meta is doing over $1 billion in their paid advertising, considering that's really their entire monetization channel. So as brands replace their paid advertising spend with influencer marketing, there's no better way in the entire influencer marketing ecosystem today to reach Gen Z consumers with outlandish engagement rates than with college athlete influencers.
Okay.
So that's how this goes.
It's a good answer.
Yeah.
I like that answer.
Yeah.
I believe it.
I hope so.
So they can reach out to you. There's a bridge round going on. If people want to get smarter on this beyond listening to this podcast, are there any sources that you recommend?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So On3 is one of the largest publications.
Love On3.
Yeah.
Shannon Terry.
Shannon Terry's a great guy,
Beast.
become a good friend.
Yes.
So they do a lot of publications around the space. I would call your attention to Pete Nakos and Eric Prisbel on the On3 team. And then NIL Newsstand is another really great publication. So there's both a news and journalist corridor or section, and then there's also a press release section where companies like MOGL are actually promoting things like that. Definitely follow MOGL on our social accounts. So we do a lot on our Instagram page in particular to highlight campaigns that we're running, and we really highlight the ROI for the brand customers. We have a blog on our website as well, so that's mogl.online. And then, some Twitter people that I would definitely follow as well. Mitt Winter is a really great personality within the space. Christy Dosh is another one. variety of different areas where you can follow the space.
So if you want to get smart, because again, there is so much interest in NIL and youth sports at large that having those resources are really exciting. So thank you, Ayden, for being here. Congrats on Mogul. It seems like a very purposely timely solution to what is a very interesting and dynamic market right now. And we'll be watching you and the space in general. So thanks for coming on KindredCast.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for more KindredCast conversations from leaders in business and beyond.